I always tell people that building wealth comes down to understanding 6 key words. That's it. You want to understand how to build wealth? All you need to do is understand 6 key words. Cash flow takes up 2 of those because that is the most important. What people do with their cash flow will either propel them forward or work as a crutch to hold them back. I literally started from nothing. I started my career with $50 in my bank account, literally $50. And today, call it 17, 18 years later, before I started my business, I grew my net worth to over 7 figures. So I say the formula to create wealth is time plus discipline squared. And that equals financial freedom. Hi, this is Jason Blumstein, and you're listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, Dream Drivers. Today on the podcast, we have Jason Blumstein, a CFA and the CEO and founder of Julius Wealth Advisors, LLC, a boutique wealth advisory providing concierge advantages. And today we are going to be talking about how you can build wealth by choice, right? Money, funding, financial independence, wealth building. These are all topics that I know you dream drivers are dealing with on the daily. So I've brought in an expert to help us debunk some myths and provide some practicable, actionable advice that we can start implementing ASAP. Jason is the host of the podcast, The Big Bo Show. He's knowledgeable, he's an engaging speaker, and you all are going to enjoy not only his tips on building personal wealth, but also his story. Growing up, Jason has been familiar with financial struggles and frustration. He's walked the walk that's been the journey of many of us dream drivers. So I'm happy to have him share his teachings on financial literacy with us. And a little bit of background about him, his expertise snowballed at branded institutions like PricewaterhouseCoopers, Morgan Stanley, and JP Morgan. And I'm certain that his grassroots fundamentals will really paint a picture worth the viewing, aimed at helping us build sustainable wealth by choice and not chance. Make sure you're following us on social. We are Dreams and Drive across the board on every platform. And if you enjoyed this episode, the best thing you can do is share it with a friend or your community. All right, I appreciate you all. Let's get into this episode with Jason.
Thanks, Raina. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on the show.
I'm excited to have you on the show. I have to give our listeners a quick backstory about how we connected. I actually was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, my girl, Nikhila Matthews of Side Hustle Pro, and she had a guest on that talked about the importance of using SCORE as a resource, right? SCORE is like a free mentoring service that connects you with a mentor who can help you with whatever your business needs are. I reached out to SCORE, got great guy, John D, as my mentor, and he connected me with you because I think he's also your SCORE mentor as well, right?
Correct. Yeah, I met John a few months ago. I reached out to SCORE about 3 or 4 months into me starting my own firm because I thought it was a great resource, and connected with John a few months down the road, and he's been a great help as well, and connected both of us. And hopefully it's a great symbiotic relationship and a great interview that we'll have on your podcast. It was great meeting you.
I know it will be. So let's kind of, I just want to give them that background, but let's hop in the car, right? We're about to go on a drive, Jason. I want to go back to your childhood, right? Take me back to what was inspiring you, the young Jason, as, a kid. Like, what was really lighting you up about the world? And then we're going to talk about the person that changed your life, right? But first, tell me what was inspiring you.
Yeah, well, if we're going to hop in a car, we're going to go back to my childhood, and we got to take that station wagon where you're facing the back of the street and there's no seatbelt. you remember those? Those were a little bit crazy if you think about that these days. So going back to my childhood, my childhood really inspired me to do what I'm doing today. I think, everything in life is an opportunity. And I think I always tell people that everything in life happens for a reason, but you typically don't know that reason at least 3 to 5 years down the road. And for me, that was more like 30 years down the road. But luckily for me, I knew what I wanted to do from the age of 10, mainly because of my childhood. I grew up in South Florida, and in my childhood, Unfortunately, my family got into some financial hardship. My dad had a business. He lost his business. My parents ended up splitting up. We ended up, I didn't even realize this at the time. My brother and I just thought it was cool that we had a pool that was green and had tadpoles living in it. But at the time, I realized down the road, looking back, that we actually ended up losing our home because of the financial
Wow.
difficulties of my parents, who I love dearly, and I learned a lot of lessons from them. But unfortunately, had a lot of financial hardships as a child, which motivated me and inspired me to do what I am doing today.
Okay, let's talk about that, right? Like, what do you think? Do you remember what it was like growing up and like seeing your parents struggling financially? I say that because I have kids now, right? And fortunately, my son, he's only 3, but he doesn't know what it is like to go without, right? Or to just see that struggle right now. Who knows what our life will look like in the future? Hopefully, he doesn't ever have to experience that. But do you just remember how that felt for you?
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
It was tough. It was tough, mainly because I was kind of dovetails a little bit into my inspiration for how I got into this business and the name of my firm of Julius Wealth Advisors. Luckily, I had a grandfather who was a child of the Great Depression. He ended up dropping out of high school during the Great Depression to support his family. But he made something of himself. He was a World War II veteran and made something of himself, and really took personal finances seriously. And luckily, he was able to buy my mom, my brother, and my sister, and myself. My parents ended up splitting up. Ended up buying us a house in a nice neighborhood. It was upper middle class neighborhood in South Florida. And it was a very it was a weird feeling, I would say. Keep on using the word weird, but I had a lot of friends that had a good amount of money and a nice
Mm-hmm.
family and good security, and I didn't really have that, and I felt the two sides of the coin very vividly and very tangibly in my life. So it was definitely a weird kind of feeling. But again, I used that as motivation and inspiration to eventually start my own business. And like I said earlier, I knew what I wanted to do since I was 10 years old, which
Yeah,
was
because of
getting
your
into personal finance.
grandfather, right?
Exactly.
So talk
Exactly.
to us about the Genesis moment for you and how your grandfather really laid laid the first track for you on your journey to becoming who you are now.
So I think it's a funny story. I tell people, they enjoy it. My grandfather was really into investing, and investing his money wisely. And he used to come over my house when I was a kid all the time. And especially once my parents split up, he would come over pretty much every single day. He lived like 30 minutes away, but him and my grandmother would come over to my house pretty much every single day. And he would come over, shut off my cartoons. As a kid, I was watching Heathcliff, Garfield, Tiny Toons Adventures. I love cartoons. And he would come over and he would turn off CNBC and put on the stock market. And he would sit there and he would quiz me and he would be like, "Oh, we own this company. We own that company. We own that." And back then, if you think about this was like the 90s. The internet wasn't around, right? So there was no internet. And he would make me look up the names of the companies that he owns in the newspaper, give him a little bit reports about each company, who they are, what they do. Back then, everything also was in fractions. Today, you can see a company, it's traded like $90.02, right? Back then, it was in fractions. So he would use that to teach me math, and he would teach me fractions. He would, what's 1/4? What's 1/8? What's 1/16? Because that's how everything was traded back then. And eventually, my mother and my grandmother saw that I was really interested in this. Number one, I was interested in it because I enjoy numbers. People in life, they say you're left-brained or right-brained, and I enjoy numbers very much so. And I enjoyed spending time with my grandfather, honestly. My grandmother said to him, listen, like, why don't you take him to your local, back then it was more brokerage. I lived in South Florida. It was, companies Raymond James, big down there. And he bought me 5 shares of Pepsi and 5 shares of Goodyear tire to really get me interested.
At 10 years old?
I was actually at this time, at the time that he bought it for me, I want to say, 9, 10 years old, roughly, at that time. And he specifically chose those companies because he wanted them to be companies that I knew that would come across the ticker. Because again, remember, there's no internet, right? So if I'm not seeing it anywhere, then it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and I might lose interest. But he wanted me to really understand how businesses work, how investing works. And every day I would come home from school, and instead of turning on my cartoons, I would turn on CNBC because I would follow the companies that he bought me. And I would learn about them. And I would learn some very interesting things about how businesses work, how the things that you see that are out there in the world are really because of how companies operate. I'll give you a great example. PepsiCo, right? PepsiCo back in the day used to own this company called Yum Brands. Yum Brands was it's now its own entity, Yum Brands, but Yum Brands used to owns Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and KFC, right? Kentucky Fried Chicken. So I knew that because I would study Pepsi. I owned the company, and it was very interesting. Every time, if you look, it's still to this day, if you go into a Taco Bell or a KFC or a Pizza Hut, what do they serve? Only Pepsi. They don't serve Coke, right? Right? Taco Bell comes out with the Doritos Locos Tacos. Why did they use Doritos? Well, Doritos is owned by Lay's, which is Frito-Lay's, which is owned by Pepsi. Right? So this relationship connected. Right. So I thought that was fascinating. And the other thing, that I thought was fascinating was Pepsi. I thought it was 3 months, right? But I looked back on it, and it was actually 3 years. But when you're young, I guess time flies. Pepsi ended up doubling and splitting and spun out Yum Brands. And I made literally $300 sitting on the couch, reading a newspaper, learning about the company, calling the company, asking them to send me their annual reports. I'm like, wow, I made $300 just talking to people and sitting on the couch and reading. It's like, I can get used to this. So that moment really got me hooked on investing and studying personal finance, because I saw the personal finance aspect comes from seeing my grandfather, who seemingly came from nothing, right, turn his life and the life of his grandchildren around because he took personal finances seriously. And I really wanted that to continue on for myself and my family as well.
And now a quick word from this week's episode partners.
Black culture feeds fashion, but fashion doesn't always feed Black creatives. I mean, only 7.3% of American fashion designers are Black. So McDonald's is pairing 5 rising Black designers with 5 fashion insiders for career-changing mentorships and the access they deserve. Because we can do better than 7.3. Together, we can change the face of fashion. Follow their journey on Instagram at WeAreGolden.
Statistics sourced from Zippia.com as of 2021.
Hey, Dream Drivers, you all know I've been doing this Mama 2 thing for a few months now, and luckily for me, I can say I've been a Pampers Swallow's mama the entire time. It's a full-time job keeping baby happy and healthy, but with Pampers, you can rest assured that you have the diapers on the market for healthy baby skin. Your baby skin is delicate, so it needs extra care and protection. Pampers Swaddlers also absorbs wetness better versus leading value brand and provides up to 100% leak-proof skin protection to help keep your baby's skin dry and healthy. The fewer things I have to worry about, the better. To really double up on that, you guys must try the new Pampers Free and Gentle wipes for healthy baby skin. Free and Gentle cleans better than Huggies Natural Care. They're 5 times stronger to help prevent tearing during a diaper change. With Free and Gentle, mess meets its match. Pampers Swallers and Pampers Free and Gentle wipes are also dermatologist approved by the Skin Health Alliance, hyperallergenic, and free of parabens and latex. For trusted protection, trust Pampers, the #1 pediatrician recommended brand. Don't forget to download the Pampers Club app today and earn Pampers Cash. Redeem your Pampers Cash for exclusive Pampers coupons, savings, and rewards. You'll know real when you get it. It'll say eBay Authenticity Guarantee, and you'll feel it. Maybe it's a head-turning handbag, a watch that says it all, jewelry that makes you look like the gem, sneakers and streetwear so fresh every step feels fly. eBay gets it. So look for the blue check mark next to that thing you love and be confident that every inch, stitch, sole, and logo is checked by experts. With eBay Authenticity Guarantee, you can trust that feeling of real is always in reach. Ensure your next purchase is the real deal. Visit eBay.com for terms. Yeah, and it's funny how, there's this trope that money can't buy happiness, right? And I always laugh at it. I'm like, well, money does buy stability, right? And money can get you a lot of things that if you didn't have it, you'd be a lot more stressed. Like your life would be so much different, right? Without that stability that your grandfather helped to provide for you and your family. Talk to us about what your careers were like and what you saw as what you decided, hey, I like this, I'm going to build a life from it. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, great question. And it's funny that you say money can't buy happiness because that kind of dovetails into my career journey.
Okay.
So, fast forward a little bit, if people met me, you would see I'm a pretty big guy. So I'm about 6'2", right now about 250, but I played football in high school, and I was fortunate to get a full scholarship to play football in college. In high school, I played for a powerhouse program. People your listeners might know is St. Thomas Aquinas. In college, I played for Lehigh. I was an offensive lineman. I studied finance, majored in finance because I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my career, and I also minored in communications because. And then this is maybe a tip for all your listeners. I studied in communications because you would always tell me when I was younger, Jason, it doesn't matter how smart you are. If you cannot communicate effectively to people, it does not matter.
Yeah.
Right. And I see that a lot today with the younger generation. I would tell you people focus on your communication skills, whether that's verbal, nonverbal, written, focus on your communication skills. And first job out of college, I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers. It wasn't my dream job, if you will, but, at the time when I graduated in 2000 and going into 2001, if we all recall, coming out of college, we had September 11th in 2001. I graduated in 2004. And then the job market wasn't that great. I took a job at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and it was to set up in their audit division, in the forensic accounting division. And that was really an eye-opener, right? And going back to how in life you typically don't understand why something happens for 3 to 5 years later. I wasn't like, oh, I want to work for Pricewaterhouse. It was a great company. But it really exposed me to so many different industries and kind of the back end of how businesses operate. And it was really a fascinating experience because that was when people were going through Sarbanes-Oxley, not to bore people. Moving on, I ended up going to Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley built out what's called the Unified Managed Account. It was the first company in the history of the industry to build that. I was the 4th person they hired on their team. I learned everything I can. And then JP Morgan came along and they wanted to build it themselves as well. So they hired me. I was only one of 4 people in the industry that knew about this. Wow. And they hired me. I was, I think at the time, 27 years old. They hired me to build this for them from scratch. And that was an unbelievable experience. I helped build out the portfolio, the operations, worked with the legal department, the marketing, the branding, went around the country and trained all the other advisors in JP Morgan. And the company forecasted that there would be about $5 billion in assets in 5 years. That was the company's projections. We hit $5 billion in 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this though, Jason. Like, as you were doing this building, as you were, really getting exposed to so many different facets of business and what it takes to run businesses, what were some of the main things you were seeing about how money really works in the real world? And I say that because I think we dream drivers have these misconceptions about wealth, about finances, about businesses behind the scenes. What were you seeing?
The thing that I was seeing, and I hate to, I don't want to have people take this the wrong way or bash the companies that I work for, things that I saw, but coming from my background of not really having anything, I really saw that a lot of what was going on in this industry, unfortunately, was the blind leading the blind, right? And that's what ultimately motivated me to start my own business.
Calling all heroes. Coca-Cola and Marvel are teaming up to release limited edition Coca-Cola products featuring your favorite Marvel characters. Collect them all to assemble your own Marvel universe. And be sure to scan your Coca-Cola for a chance to win superpowered prizes and unlock powerful AR experiences. But act fast, fans. These collectibles won't last long. No purchase necessary. Open to legal residents of the U.S. and D.C. who are 13 and up. Ends on June 30th, 2024. Visit Coke.com/Marvel24 for official rules. Did y'all know there's a whole collection of Black-led products that fit into your daily routine and lifestyle that you can get at Walmart? And it's so important that we show Black founders some love, not just during Black History Month, but all year long. Because every time we buy a Black-led brand, we're making room or creating demand for another Black-led brand. Black founders and the products they bring to the table are creating a whole new world of choices at Walmart. Some of the products I want to check out are Creamalicious Ice Cream, Partake Cookies, the Lip Bar, Midwest Kids, and the Do Hair Care. Go to walmart.com/Black and Unlimited to discover all the amazing Black-owned products that you can add to your daily routine.
Right? Because I saw, one of the things that I saw is that, of course, in business, you have to make money, right? So there's nothing against making money. It's how do you do it? Are you doing it in the right way? Are you doing it to build a long-term sustainable business, right? Or are you looking for a quick sale? And a quick sale, unfortunately, can have short-term positives, but typically long-term negatives. And what I was seeing was a lot of short-termism that goes on in Wall Street, right? And I grew up reading and listening to, since I read my first book about Warren Buffett when I was 14, and Charlie Munger. And that's one thing that they would always preach, is the power of the long term, of doing the right thing, and to really focus on forming relationships, long-term relationships, and how Wall Street is typically focused on the short term, right? And that's the thing that I saw. I saw that very vividly. So I think, unfortunately, in my industry, I think my industry doesn't do a good job whatsoever of educating people, of just giving people knowledge and understanding. We learn nothing, absolutely nothing about personal finance in school. And then we graduate and they tell us, go ahead and create wealth.
And that's why a lot of us are just like, wait, what? And we do it in ways that, like, antiquated things that we may have heard from our parents. Like, no one really knows, like, what's the real way to do this, right? Or what's the most efficient way, or what's the most effective way for our personal, situation, because everyone's situation is different, right?
100%. 100%. Everyone's situation is different. And that's why you have to take the time to focus on what works for you, and then what are your long-term goals, and then work backwards to get there. Go ahead.
Ooh, no, keep going.
No, so then I would say work backwards to get there, and don't be afraid to ask for help, right? I think that a lot of times people and money in our society, it's very interesting that we live in America, the wealthiest country in the world, and talking about money is very taboo. Very taboo. Nobody talks about money whatsoever, right? So talk about it. Maybe you don't want to talk about it to everyone and everything because it tends to be private, but find that person that you trust. Find that individual, find that company that you trust, and openly talk about it and get the proper people in your corner that have your back.
Let's talk about the idea, talking about money, right? Because we don't talk about it a lot, but let's talk about it, me and you right now, right? So when talking about money, a lot of our listeners are people who either work in corporate jobs with side hustles, want to be entrepreneurs one day, or, just want to get better when it comes to their financial fitness, I'm calling it. What should we be talking about? Like, what are the things that the average 30-year-old starting their family, middle of their career, what are the things that we should have knowledge about or just be speaking about during this time in our lives?
I always tell people that that building wealth comes down to understanding 6 key words. That's it. You want to understand how to build wealth? All you need to do is understand 6 key words. The first word is assets, right? Assets are something that you own. Liabilities. Okay. Liabilities are things that you owe. Income, that's your money that's coming in. Expenses, that's your money going out. And then the difference between your income and your expenses is known as
profit.
Your cash flow.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So It's interesting that you use the word profit because there's a difference. There's business terms and then there's personal terms.
Okay.
Right. So if you say assets and liabilities, and this might be getting a little bit technical, you can tell me to go keep it up or keep on going down with it.
Okay.
So assets and liabilities, the difference between your assets and your liabilities is your net worth. So that's literally how much net you actually own. Because if you own a home, and let's just say your home is worth $1 million, but you have a $800,000 mortgage, the net that you actually own of that is $200,000, $1 million minus $800,000, right? Mm-hmm. So that's your net worth. And then if you're a business, going back to business terms, that's known as your equity. And that's also where the term equities come from. If you're thinking about people investing in the quote unquote stock market, that's where the term equities come from. Because when you own a stock or an equity, you literally own a piece of the business. You own the net equity of the business. And this is also the things that I try to talk to about when educating people is to make, when you're starting to your journey of investing, to make things real, to make things tangible. Kind of like how my grandfather did with me with Pepsi, right? Learn about the business. Learn about how the business operates. Learn about why you go into Taco Bell and you only see Pepsi products and never Coke. If you understand and you make things real and tangible, then it usually has the powerful effect of keeping you motivated and understanding how things operate. Right?
So quick question, before we talk a little bit more, I just want to make sure we get the 6th one. We have assets, liabilities, income, expenses, cash flow. Then I don't think we did the 6th one.
Very good. I said 6 key words. Cash flow are 2 words. So let me get that.
Okay. Good. All right. See, look at me.
So let me know why. So let me go back to that, right? So you said profit, right? Profit is a business term, right? You have revenues, you have expenses, and your business makes a profit. For a individual, it's cash flow because you have income coming in, you have expenses going out, you have to pay Uncle Sam some taxes, right? The difference between income and expenses is cash flow. And why is cash flow important? Because that cash flow needs to be used to create assets that work for you versus you constantly working for your income. And that's the key. That's simple. And that's why the emphasis on 6 key words. Cash flow takes up 2 of those because that is the most important. What people do with their cash flow will either propel them forward or work as a crutch to hold them back.
So let's talk about, since it's the most important, right? And we're talking about real life examples. Can you walk us through what someone, I guess, with good, I don't know if you say positive cash flow. Look, I'm learning here, right? Like, what does that look like in real life?
Yep. So what does cash flow look in real life? So I'll give you an example of it, right? So most people know how much they make, right? Most people will know, okay, I work at a company, I get a salary, maybe making a couple $100,000 a year after bonus. I know how much I make. People know how much they make. The next critical piece of that equation is most people that I come across have no idea how much money they spend. They have no idea. No idea.
If they're not tracking it, is that what you mean? Or just no idea at all?
Both.
I guess it's the same thing. It's the same. But I'm thinking about, I feel like I'm very guilty of that, right? Like, I know I'm good with my money, but when I think about it, I don't actually track it. I'm just like, I'm good with my money, but am I actually... if you ask me how much did you spend in January or, in April, I'll be like, I didn't go into debt.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So the best way that I tell people or work with people and coach people into understanding your expenses is that there's expenses that you definitely know, right? And then there's expenses that you think you know, which are kind of like your lifestyle expenses. So let's talk about expenses that you definitely know. Well, we all live somewhere, so we either have a rent or a mortgage, right? And that's a fixed number every single month. You know what that is. People typically have to pay for health insurance. You know what that's going to be. People typically have a car. You know what that expense is going to be with your car and car insurance. People typically have utilities, right? So there's a bunch of items that you know you're going to spend every single month. So take a spreadsheet if you're good with Excel. If you're not, if you're old school and you want to use a pen and paper, whatever. But get these numbers down. Get these numbers down and make them real, make them tangible. Because as you're going through things, you will see after you take your income and your expenses and use some small projections for your taxes, right? Because your taxes is an expense that often people forget about when they're thinking about a budget.
Yeah, especially if you have your own business, where I just learned right now, like, make sure you pay those taxes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So always project out your taxes. And if you don't know how to project them out, then, reach out to someone that does. And there's good resources out there with you call a CPA, a wealth advisor can help you with, like my firm can help you with tax planning, but we're not accountants, right?
Okay.
We can work with your accountants, but we ultimately, at the end of the day, we are not your accountants. We can help you with tax planning, but we will not, we don't file your taxes for you. Okay. So then once you have the difference of those two, you should start to see, and literally it's just pluses and minuses, right? All this stuff that we've learned before elementary school, right? And once you have those numbers, you'll start to see hopefully a positive number afterwards, right? And that starts to think about what your cash flow is. And then on top of it, a lot of people are like, okay, so that's my cash flow. Let's just say $3,000, making that up. But then what people also forget is they have all these other variable expenses. Well, do you want to take a vacation during the year? How much you spend on household items? It's about going out every single month. How many times are you going for dinner, right? Mm-hmm. Those are all variable. And typically the best place to see that, most people these days put money on a credit card and then pay that credit card off every single month. People these days with the points, they like to just put it on the credit card and then just pay that off every month. It's kind of like your operating account, right? To operate your life. Mm-hmm. And those numbers, I typically tell people, look at the past 6 months. If you have time, look at the past year and find out what you on average spent on your credit card every single month that you've paid off. And that will be your lifestyle expenses. That's kind of a catch-all. So hopefully, ideally, when you plug that number in, you still have a positive number. Sometimes people then either go down to zero or have a negative number. Now, if you have a negative number, now you know that you're probably living, not probably, you are, you're living a life.
Paycheck and in debt.
No, you're worse, right, exactly. You're living a life that you can't afford. And if there's a negative number, and let me tell you, most people underestimate their expenses. But by doing this exercise, you can at least take a good snapshot picture of what reality looks like. And if it's negative, you have to adjust your lifestyle if you want to grow. If you don't want to grow, then who am I to tell you to adjust your lifestyle, right? But it's very tough to grow when you have a negative number, almost impossible. Yeah. And you'll see things that are in there that maybe, oh, I don't need it or I don't. But every time I do this exercise with clients, it's eye-opening. I've never once done this with a client and they're like, wow, I knew all that. Almost 100% of the time, I can't think of a time when someone didn't say, like, wow, this was eye-opening to me. Right?
What is normally the biggest eye-openers? Is it like a category? Is it they're realizing that they're spending too much in one place?
Yeah, the biggest eye-opener is that they just didn't know. They just didn't know. They it's kind of like what you said to me earlier. Yeah, I manage my money well. I think I manage my money well. Right? Everyone thinks like most people don't think they're doing something wrong and continue to do it. Right? If you're doing something wrong, you'll stop. But if you don't think you're doing something wrong, you'll continue to do it. But eventually, it will catch up to you in life if you just don't know. And that's what happens is people just do not know. There's a lot of power in knowledge and power in knowing, right? So a lot of people will come to me like, I make a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, what's your assets? What's your liabilities? And I'm like, numbers don't make sense. These numbers do not make sense. And the number one thing I tell people, and this is not to be mean, but having a very liking numbers and having a very scientific mind. And one of the things that I learned from one of my managers when I was at JP Morgan, he would always tell me, Jason, numbers don't lie, people do. Right? So when we're in there, we're making investments and we're talking to management teams and CEOs and CFOs of making when we're looking to make investments in companies, he would always tell me, sleep on it for 24 hours. Don't listen to what they say. Look at the numbers. Because people will tell you anything. But numbers don't lie. People do. And that's what happens with people's personal finances. We're not trying to lie to ourselves, but we are. We are. The numbers don't lie. The numbers of this country are not good when it comes to personal finances and wealth. We live in the wealthiest country in the world. And
are we truly wealthy?
Right. But the numbers are saying that most people aren't even coming close to having enough money saved for retirement or financial freedom or whatever they want to do to live financially independent. And I think the numbers are 60% of the population is living paycheck to paycheck. So we have to stop lying to ourselves and look at the numbers.
I think that's a good segue for the question of like, is wealth attainable? Maybe we can interchange wealth with like financial freedom, financial stability, right? Is that really attainable? And then, this is a really heavy topic. And of course, not heavy, but there's a lot that goes into it. So I'll call it loaded. Is there a true formula or is there some kind of formula that you suggest people follow for, the journey to building wealth, to building financial stability, financial freedom?
Is wealth truly obtainable? I think was your first question.
Yeah.
I can answer that 100% confidently. That answer is yes. And how do I know? Because I did it for myself. I literally started from nothing. I started my career with $50 in my bank account, literally $50. The last 3 weeks before I started my first job, I did nothing. My friend would ask me, Jason, you want to come out here, go out there? I was like, I didn't tell him this. I was just embarrassed, right? I had no money. I had $50 in my bank account before I started my first job.
So you used that $300 from Pepsi that you got from there?
Good one. Good one. So I had $50 in my bank account and I had $30,000 in debt, mainly from student loans, right? I got a full scholarship to play football at Lehigh, but I had to take out some student loans just to have spending money, right? Because interestingly, when you, and I think the laws have changed and the rules have changed so much now, but when I played, you couldn't even get a job because it would have looked like it was a booster that was supplying you. So I couldn't even get a job when I was in college when I was playing football. So I had $30,000 in debt and $50 in my bank account. And today, call it 17, 18 years later, before I started my business, I grew my net worth to over 7 figures. Right. So I took a negative $30,000 net worth to over 7 figures in about 17 years. So is it attainable? Yes, 100%. 100% attainable. So what is that formula? You asked me for a formula. The formula is simple. It's a formula that I actually created because I was trying to think about how can I break this down. And it's interesting that you used the word formula because I was like, okay, how do I break this down in simple terms for people to get it through that this is how you build wealth. And it's very simple and it might not be what people want to hear, but it's the truth.
Hit it. Let us know. We need the truth.
Here's the truth. Time. All you need is time plus a whole bunch of discipline. So I say the formula to create wealth is time plus discipline squared. And that equals financial freedom. Time plus discipline squared equals financial freedom. And why do I use those two things? Well, number one, time. The only way to truly build wealth is you need time, whether that's time of when you're younger creating knowledge to start your job, or as you get cash flow, you got to recognize that this journey is going to take time. Even when you think about the companies that there are today, let's just say Amazon. Amazon is a huge company today. The company didn't make any money for almost 15 years.
Wow.
Right. So people
you have
think
to be all right with that. No one's
right,
in
100%.
it.
You not only do you have to be all right with that, you have to know that and know that this is the truth. The truth is that building wealth takes time. I looked at this, so I might be a little bit off on it, but if you look at the top 10 or 20 wealthiest people in the world, almost 60 to 70% of them are over 65 years old. They're not 20 years old. They're not 30 years old. They're not 40. Why are they so old? Because money compounds on top of money. Time creates more wealth. So if you're starting off with $1,000, that needs to grow, right? I always give people the example that if you had $10,000 and you made 10% on your money, how much money did you make in a year? You made $1,000.
Yeah,
big
so you
deal.
have 11,000, right?
Now you have 11. Big deal. People are like, oh, I only have $11,000. That stinks. Great. But now you fast forward 20 years later, 15 years later, by having the discipline, which I'll get to next, and you have $1 million. If you have $1 million and you made the exact same 10% return, how much money did you make? You made $100,000. So the same return percentage gets you that much more money. And it's like a snowball effect, right? You take a pebble. I used to watch cartoons, going back to my cartoons. There's all these cartoons. You take a pebble. And I grew up in Florida, so I never knew about snow. So I thought this was fascinating. You took the pebble at the top of the mountain and it kind of grew to the huge snowball when it got down to the end. And that's what building wealth is about. It's about time. And then the next is discipline. Because if you don't have a whole bunch of discipline, it doesn't matter how much time you have. Because if you don't have the discipline to know that you need to put in the work every single day and be comfortable by, you might be making 1% gains every single day, and it might seem like it's nothing. But you fast forward 10, 15 years and you put in that disciplined effort, you will see that huge snowball. You will see that huge return on your work ethic. And a lot of times, and this is one of the things that I concentrate in my business at Julius Wealth Advisors, is the power of coaching. The power of having a partner that's in this with you, that stays on top of it, that gives you objective, truthful, honest advice. And sometimes people don't like to hear things, but they appreciate them. And this, I get that from when I played football, right? And when I played sports. Coaches weren't there to make me feel good about myself. They were there to make me better and make my team better. And
I love that. I love that.
Right. And I think that's, and who's your team? If you're a family, your team is your significant other. If you have kids, that's your team. But who's the coach for your team? The coach for your... Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just want to say, I think it's also just making me think about how I think sometimes we think we have to DIY everything ourselves. And no, like that's not, just even beyond building wealth. Like if you want to build success overall in life, you cannot do it alone, right? And
100%.
Taking the stress out of stop trying to DIY the journey and bring people on, invite someone into the passenger seat to help navigate you, right? Like you can't just drive somewhere blindly and think you'll end up where you need to go. You need someone to really help steer you. That's what I'm hearing too.
Of course. I mean, I can give you two tangible examples of that. One goes to when I played sports and football, and the other is business. So when I played football, the example I always give people about the power of teamwork is I played offensive line in football. So people that don't know what offensive line is, those are typically those big fat ogres that block for the quarterback and the running back and the wide receivers, and then those guys get all the glory and the nobody knows who an offensive lineman is. But on the offensive line, there's five people. There's the center who snaps the ball. There's two guards and there's two tackles. So in college, we were scrimmaging a team, and I was destroying the guy in front of me. Right? There's a technical term called a pancake block in football. I was pancaking. I was basically knocking him over onto his back. Right? And then I would turn around, and we lost 5 yards on the play. And I'm like, what the heck happened? Next play, same thing. I'm like, what's going on here? Next play, I decided to just stay and hold the guy at the line of scrimmage. And I noticed that the reason why the play was going backwards was because the guy next to me was getting beaten every single play. The guy was going past him and tackling the guy behind the line of scrimmage. And that was a very powerful moment, a very powerful lesson, because it taught me that it does not matter how good Jason is. It only matters how good Jason and his teammates are. Because the play will go nowhere if the people that are your teammates, and you need teammates, aren't also just as good, if not better than you. You always want to search for people that are better than you. I think that's something that people get scared of. If you search for people that are better than you, it lifts you up. It doesn't bring you down. It lifts you up. So always focus on finding people that are better than you. And that kind of goes into the business world. And you brought up earlier how you and I met through John D. And why did I reach out? Because I know finance, I know investments. I'm building my own firm. I know nothing about marketing and branding. Nothing. I never studied that. So I could have done all the research and try to figure it out, and I probably would have failed and thought I was doing well, right? And wasted a ton of time and a ton of money. Or you can go out there and find someone that knows a lot more than you. And bring them onto your team. And that goes back to building wealth.
Yep.
Find someone that knows 1,000,000 times more than you and bring them onto your team. And I know this might sound self-serving. And it's a lot of people say, well, that costs a lot of money. Money is only an object in the absence of value. So if someone's creating value in your life, Who cares how much you're paying them?
Right? Because the return on that
Return
is
on
going to be
investment.
so much more than what you put in, right?
100%. That's also goes back to the key of building wealth. It's about return on investment. What are you doing with your cash flow to build a return on your investments to get you more assets?
I mean, this is something I love that we're having this conversation, and like, this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? Which is why I wanted to have you on the show, because, you know, we can only talk about so much in an hour, and hopefully people are listening and like, people feel like, I think the biggest thing is people feel like it's possible for them, right? This is a show about putting your dreams into drive. And if you want to put your dreams into drive, you have to believe that these things are possible. And building wealth, building that financial stability, right, is possible. You just have to, as Jason said, you have to be willing to put in that time and discipline. So I just hope that people listening in don't just write off this conversation we're having, right? And like, they start taking action, because that's the biggest thing too, is you have to take action. You have to decide that you want to change your reality.
100%. 100%. You have to make that decision. No one will make that decision for you, but you can get people that can be on your team to help make your dream a reality.
So talk to our dream drivers a little bit about your firm and what your firm does, Jason, and like, you know, if someone is considering a firm like yours, like what to look out for, what are some of your specialties?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So going back to what you're saying, so my firm is Julius Wealth Advisor. I started my firm almost 3 years ago because I saw this huge need in the marketplace to help people build wealth by choice, not chance, right? And by choice means that they made that decision. They made the decision that they want to create wealth. And they also made the decision, and they know that they cannot do it on their own, and they need someone in their corner. So the things that we pride ourselves on is being a boutique firm with concierge advantages. And what that means is that all I try to do and all my firm tries to do is be there for you, educate you, and teach you the ins and outs, and be that trusted voice for all things personal finance, whether that means understanding simply what the term asset means, understanding what your assets are, what it means if you have liabilities. Sometimes debt is not always a 4-letter word. Sometimes there's good debt. Sometimes there's bad debt. What's the interest rates on your debt, right? We educate you on this because a lot of times people will make blanket decisions. Pay off all your debt. Well, why? Like right now, for example, if you have a 2.75% mortgage, which many people did that took advantage of that during COVID, after taxes, that's less than inflation. Why would you pay that off? Right? So it's not just saying do this or do that. It's understanding your unique situation. Because the reason why it's called personal finance is because it's personal. So what might work for me, Jason? What might work for you, Raina? What might work for all my other clients? It's always different. No two individuals are alike. That's why we're individuals, right? So then when it comes to that, it was understanding, like we said earlier, your cash flow. And then what are we doing together to take your cash flow to make things work for you? And then that comes to helping you invest. If you have your own business, helping you understand the effects of having all your money potentially trapped in your business, how that affects your personal life, because that's stressful. If you have you might have, I meet people a lot of times that have huge net worths, but they're all trapped, either trapped in a home or trapped in a business. And that's stressful, right? So how do you create a situation of calm? I know personally how stressful not having any money can be, and I couldn't stand it, right? So when you come to my firm, you're not talking to someone that hasn't been there. I've been there. I know how stressful money can be, but I also know what it takes to get you to a place of calm, because I also did that for myself.
Yeah, and I think that's, thank you for sharing that. And I think your easy approach to personal finances, or not easy, I want to say calming, right? Because I think a lot of people get stressed. Like, people listening, creators are like, this is not for me. They avoid it. But hopefully this conversation helps make it real for people and make people realize it doesn't have to be stressful, right? It doesn't have to be this thing that you avoid, because you can never, if you don't see it, you'll never fix it, right? You'll never work on it. You'll never try to make it better. And knowing, I think the big thing that we haven't talked about, maybe we can talk about this just really quickly, is like finances will be one of the biggest things of whether or not you're able to successfully put any dream into motion, right? Like, at the end of the day, we all need that to be a stable factor so that we can put our dreams into drive, no matter what type of dream that is, right?
100%. 100%. I mean, you're people every single day, no matter what you do for a living, every single day, people deal with money. Whether you're going to the food store, buying milk, right, or running your own business, every single day, we cannot go one day without learning about money or dealing with money or using money, no matter what you do or who you are.
Yeah. So if you're listening, and you want to make that change, like, hopefully this episode inspires you to reach out to someone like Jason, right? To work with a personal firm. Maybe it's even just to research more about what these, assets, liabilities, income, expenses, cash flow really means. I think that can be a first step for a lot of people too, because they might just be scared to just even get started and start having these conversations. So the idea that, we talked about how talking about money is the biggest thing. So hopefully this inspires people to start talking about money and then to start taking action, because there's so much things that can be unlocked, right, for you once you have this. And maybe, as a way to end this, Jason, can you kind of just maybe give our listeners something to look forward to? Like, how have you, building wealth changed your life? Like, how do you see that come to fruition now with where you are in your life, your business, whatever you want to talk about?
It's really being at peace and knowing who you are and knowing who you're not, right? So it gives you this sense of confidence. It gives you a sense of, I talk to people a lot about the term swagger, right? Mm-hmm. So growing up in Miami, I was a huge Miami Hurricanes fan. The 90s, you had people like Warren Sapp that really talked about swagger. And the way that I define swagger, and this dovetails into wealth, if you have it or you're looking to create it. Swagger is having the confidence to know that you will succeed, yet being humble enough to never stop working to ensure that you do. So even though I have built some wealth, I'm still humble enough to show up every single day to put in the work for my firm, for my clients, for my family, for my friends. I try to help out the Little League in my town, getting that off the ground, which is probably the hardest thing that I do in my life. That's harder than building a company.
That's rewarding, right?
It's very rewarding. It's very rewarding. That's what I would tell people is have some swagger in your life. You have to have confidence in your abilities. Confidence goes a long way, but there's a fine line between confidence and cockiness. And that fine line is swagger. By being humble enough to continue to wake up every single day to put in the work. And having the ability to ask for help and finding people that get in your corner, that truly have your back.
I know, you're building your own business, right? You're in a moment of change within your own life. And I ask this to all our guests because I think it's real. Sometimes you might want to put your car in park, right? You might want to put it in reverse or neutral. So Jason, when you feel like giving up, what keeps you going?
Yeah. That's another great question. First thing I will tell you is I never give up. I never give up. I am a very relentless person. And I learned that because I from my upbringing, right? I saw what it was like to have stuff, but I had nothing. I mean, I had, I don't want to think like I had nothing. That sounds terrible, right? Because I definitely had a better life than, we live in America, and I think we take that for granted of how really great our lives are here relative to other parts of the world. So I don't want to sound terrible as I had nothing, but relative to my environment and the people I saw, and I saw what was going on, I didn't have a lot. And I knew that the only way that I can get out of my situation was to never give up.
Yeah.
Like literally never give up. I don't ever give up on what I truly believe needs to happen in my life and the world around me. And then realistically and truthfully, my kids, right? Like, I grew up, it's my kids. I mean, I knew what it was like growing up and being the kid in the neighborhood that had nothing, right? Didn't have a car, had, little money to go out and hang out with my friends. And all my friends were out, partying. I'm sitting there. I love football, but playing football, playing baseball, not because of the love of the game, because I knew that was my pathway to get into college, right? And I saw that struggle, and I don't really want that for my kids, which is an interesting balancing act, right? That I think about a lot with my kids is that, struggle's good sometimes, struggle.
Yeah, they have to learn how to.
Yeah, you have to learn how to struggle.
Resiliency.
To grow. Exactly. Yeah. So I that's the flip side of the coin. But what truly makes me never give up are my kids. I have an older son who's 11 and a younger daughter who's 8. And every day I want to make sure that I give them the life that and the childhood that I did not have.
So last question, Jason. If you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success, right? So can you tell our dream drivers 3 things that every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road?
That's simple. For me, it goes back to if you learn and you read the mission of my firm, there's 3 words that stand out, and those are the 3 things I think you need to have to be a successful entrepreneur and is really a successful person in life. Really, it's integrity, knowledge, and passion, and in that order. Period. And a lot of people get that order backwards, right? Oh, I'm passionate about it, but you have no knowledge, right? Or I have knowledge, but I have no integrity. Well, that's not good, right? So you have to have it in that particular order. You have to have the utmost integrity. Because, yeah, especially in my business, right? But any business, even, if you're selling someone a shirt or a slice of pizza, yeah, it's a transaction. But if there's no integrity in that transaction, I'm not going to show up again and buy a shirt from you or buy a slice of pizza from you, right? So integrity and being true to your word and building trust is pivotal. That's the number one thing you must have. Because if you have integrity and people trust you, you can teach them and you can show them your knowledge. If people don't trust you, you can tell them the truth. But if they don't trust you, who cares?
Exactly.
Right? So then you got to be knowledgeable. You got to show people that you actually know what you're talking about. And now that you have their trust and you showed up with integrity, they'll actually listen. And then people might think you're trustful and think you're knowledgeable. But if you're not passionate about what you're doing, they'll realize it. They will realize it. And then they might not want to continue to do business with you. Yeah, you're trustworthy, you're knowledgeable, but you're not fun to deal with and you're really not passionate about what you do. So you're going to be there 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, and in my case, 40 plus years down the road when I need you. Not if you're not passionate about it. So I would tell people, in order to be a successful entrepreneur, but more importantly, be a successful human being, those are the 3 things you need: integrity, knowledge, and passion.
Thank you, Jason, so much for sharing that. I love that. I think it's a great way to end our conversation, and also just knowing that, dream driving is about the long-term gains, right? And those 3 things are important. Can you tell our listeners where they can connect with you online, offline, if they want to learn more, if they want to just see, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, that'd be great. So there's 4 ways. You can call my office, call my company, Julius Wealth Advisors. That number is 201-408-4644. You can visit my website. That's juliuswealthadvisors.com, or you can shoot me an email. It's jason@juliuswealth.com. I'm also on, I don't really do a ton of social media, but the place where I'm at is on LinkedIn. So you can feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Again, name is Jason Blumstein. Just look me up and look to connect.
Thank you so much, Jason. I hope our dream drivers enjoy this conversation and just feel empowered about, they can definitely attain wealth in their life. Thank you so much.
100%. Thank you so much for having me on, Rainey. I really appreciated this.
All right, so that's a wrap for this week's episode with Jason. I hope you enjoyed his dream driving journey and learning about how you can build wealth by choice, not chance. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you are following us on social media. We are Dreams and Drive across the board on every platform. And also, guys, share this episode with a friend. If you found that this week's episode tips really made personal wealth and wealth building seem like it's something that you can do, share it with a friend. I'm sure that there's someone else in your life, in your community, in your circle that can benefit from hearing this message as well. And lastly, if you want to join our email newsletter and get weekly email tips delivered right to your inbox, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. All right, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we will chat again in the next episode. Bye, guys.